He says, man, out of nowhere, we had this big storm come up, big storm popped up. I tried to tarp it, couldn't get it tarped. We had the dead valley ripped out. You know, the girls I have dated over the years, it seems to range as a whole bunch of different girls that I've dated over the years. But there's one girl I dated right when I was leaving the company I was working for to start my own company. I was starting my own roofing company. And, you know, things didn't work out with me and her for one reason or another. But me and her mom, we were really, really good friends. And it wound up being one of those things where we became not business partners, but we gave each other business. She ran a company that did basically like mold remediation, you know, water recoveries. You know, you have a flood come in and then people will come, they'll come in and take all the water out and do all the water extraction and demo and rebuild and stuff like that. And so, you know, a lot of times when we have a leak, there'd be a serious leak and we didn't really want to spend time inside working on, you know, the interior work. So I'd give the lead to her and she'd give me roof leaks. And so we had a good business relationship. I just started my company, maybe like 3 or 4 months I've been in my company. And she calls me, her, you know, my ex-girlfriend's mom calls me and she says, hey, I have a job for you. It's a pretty big job. I think you'd be a good fit for it. I said, okay, well, tell me about it. She said, well, it's a retirement home here in Georgia and they've got a bad leak. I think you need to come in, take a look, kind of figure out what you can do. So I went out, took a look at things. Of course, you know, I wanted the job, so I came in pretty competitively priced. And so we got the job. Now, the people that gave us the job, they had to go to like a board to get it approved. It was, everything moved very, very slow, moved like molasses, right? And so the guy that was the, like, think of him as like the overseer of like the estate, because it was a pretty big retirement like living area, right? So he was kind of like in charge of everything that had to do with you know, maintaining the buildings, like the maintenance department, kind of the head of that. And he was skeptical giving me the job. He didn't really want me to get the job, but his boss overruled it. And for the sake of the story, we're just going to call him Jay. And so Jay told me up front, he said, look, you're a new company, you're super young. I think that they should not give you this job, but I got overruled. So don't mess this up. I said, look, you know, Mr. J, we're going to do a great job. We're going to take care of it for you. And I was honestly a little surprised how honest he was with me. He was super just blunt and like, hey, I don't think you're going to be a good fit for this. But the repair wasn't super complicated. Now, what we were doing is we were basically coming into a dead valley. And a dead valley is where there's a bunch of water that comes kind of to a point and then the roof gets really flat. So they call it dead valley because when the water gets there, the water's rushing there and then it just stops. So dead valley, dead water, whatever the case may be. Here's the issue with that. We had a bunch of different valleys that were coming into this, had 4 main valleys coming into this. So when it rains, obviously this area is getting a ton of water coming into it. So we start the repairs, things are going good. I have a good friend of mine that's doing the repairs. He's got a small team out there. I'm, still trying to sell more jobs. I'm on the other side of the county trying to sell more jobs. And I get a phone call from Jay. And he is cussing me out. You need to get your out here. You need to come out and take a look at this. You got water pouring in. I mean, just screaming, and then he hangs up. Immediately, I get a phone call from my buddy who's doing the repair. He says, man, out of nowhere, we had this big storm come up, big storm popped up. I tried to tarp it, couldn't get it tarped. We had the dead valley ripped out. So there's nothing there except for like decking. Like you could see basically the into the attic because they were replacing rotten decking and everything. So the only thing stopping the water from coming literally into the front desk is sheetrock. So as you can imagine, we're not off to a good start. It was one of those good old Georgia rains, poured like hell for about 10 minutes, and then blue skies. I get a video from Jay, and I you not, there is water on all the computers on the front desk, all the phones on the front desk. There's water running out the front door. There, and keep in mind, this is when I say retirement, I probably should have said like assisted living, because this is more assisted living than retirement. Most of the people here are they're not disabled, but they need assistance to move around. They're in wheelchairs, they're on walkers. And so as you can imagine, the liability associated with having a bunch of elderly people trying to walk in and out the front door with water all over the place is not a good mix. I show up, I'm panicking. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, man. Keep in mind, I just started the company. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have general liability insurance. I didn't have workers' comp insurance. I didn't have anything. I show up, I'm panicking. I'm thinking, what are we gonna do? Jay comes running up. He sees my truck pulling. He comes running up to me and he goes, I knew we shouldn't have hired you. We're going to sue you 5 ways to Sunday. This is it. This is it. Get your stuff and get out of here. I mean, he is losing his mind on me. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. We made a mistake. But we didn't know that it was going to, have a pop-up rain like that. I mean, how could we anticipate that? The weather said it was going to be good that day. Jay calmed down. I convinced him to let us finish the job. I said, look, Jay, I understand you're mad, but you need to let us finish. Even if we need to work something out, I said, look, I'm going to get this fixed. I'm going to get all the stuff fixed for you. Don't worry about it. He said, well, who's answering the phones? Oh, there's nobody answering the phones because they're wet. They're not working. Who's checking the computers? Nobody, because they're wet. They're not working. You're paying for all this. How are you going to pay for all this? So keep in mind, I'm literally my pants. I'm so scared right now. I'm terrified because I'm thinking, what have I done? I just left the company where I had, a nice job. I was making good money, just doing sales. If I was doing sales for the company and this happened, it wouldn't be an issue. But since this is my company, I'm now responsible for all of this. I called my ex-girlfriend's mom. I said, hey, you know that lead you gave me at the retirement home? She's like, yeah. I was like, well, I need you to get your boys out here and help us get some of this water cleaned up. We've had water come in and it's ruined everything. Keep in mind, it's like, this is a Saturday, right? It's a little bit later in the afternoon. All of her guys are off work. They're out, they're drinking, so she literally calls her guys, finds the 2 most sober guys that she has, brings them there. I mean, it's late. We're, taking computers out. We're cutting out sheetrock. We're, sucking up all the water. We've got dehumidifiers all over the place. We've got blowers. You got these old people with walkers trying to get over the wires that are connected to the blowers and the dehus. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. We get through everything, and I just kept telling Jay, look, we're going to fix it. We're going to handle it. And I'm already thinking in the back of my mind, Jay's boss is going to call me on Monday. And what am I going to say to him that's going to keep him from literally just not paying us at all on this job? Because while we were competitive on the job, it was still pretty expensive. I mean, it was a pretty expensive job. I think it was probably around 12 or 13,000, right? And we didn't collect any money up front. At the time, I thought that was a good way to do business. You don't collect up money up front. Now I've evolved. But neither here nor there. We get everything cleaned up. My ex-girlfriend's mom calls me and she says, look, she's like, you have got a lot of damage here. I mean, you've got a ton of damage here. I said, look, whatever it is, I'm going to pay for it. We're going to figure it out. Get the roof dried in. Get everything dry. Get that everything dried out. At this point, I'm talking to Jay. I'm saying, well, what do I need to do? Like get your phones back up and working, stuff like that. Thankfully, they had some extra stuff they were able to hook up. It was working. All in all, to make a very long story short, that job, it wound up costing me about another $15,000 to get everything handled. So we did the job for like $12,000 or $13,000. Any profit there is, of course, gone. Then I had to pay. Now, keep in mind, my ex-girlfriend's mom's doing this all for me at cost because she knows that I just opened the company. I had to pay about another $15,000 to get all of this stuff fixed and handled. Now, thankfully, we were able to do it very, very quickly. We had everything up and running and looking good by like Tuesday, I think. And of course, Jay, he was constantly calming down a little bit, and we got everything wrapped up. And he called me later on that next week and said, hey, I've got your check for you. I want to talk to you. I said, oh, Lord, this is going to be a lawsuit right here. Let me get a lawyer, bring him to this meeting. So we met at a little bitty restaurant across the street from the retirement house, a housing or, assisted living, whatever. And he handed me the check and he said, man, he's like, I'll just tell you, I'm impressed with the way that you handled this. He said, I was expecting you to literally just run out and leave us with the bill, but I'm impressed with the way you handled this. I'm going to put in a good word for you. I said, hey, Jay, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. I said, look, I'm very sorry this happened, but if there's anything I can do to, kind of repair the relationship, I'd like to do it. Fast forward 3 years. 3 years later, I get a call from Jay. He says, hey, man, been a long time. I've, heard that your company's grown and y'all are doing good now and you've got partners and, you've got investors and that kind of stuff. He said, we need somebody to come out and quote the complex. Keep in mind, this complex is about 800 squares of shingles, right? Which any roofer knows that's a big job. Went out, quoted it, and Jay's boss called me. He said, hey, he's like, you're the guy that destroyed our front desk a couple years ago, right? And I said, yes, sir. That's us. That's me, unfortunately. He said, well, he's like, Jay put in a good word for you and said that you had handled that really, really well. So because of that, we feel like we can trust you. We're going to go ahead and give you the job. So we wound up doing the job, and I think it's safe to say we made our 15 grand back that I had to had to put down initially. So that being said, if you're ever doing a repair on a dead valley in Georgia, be sure that you've got a tarp handy and you're keeping a close eye on the weather, lest somebody's grandma is tripping and falling over all the water that you had come out. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.